seen some, so you'll notice that it's just solving problems involving linear relations. These aren't as straightforward. The last, like that learning goal that we just did, you know exactly what you have to do, how to find the initial value, how to find the rate. It's kind of the same every time. But when we talk about problems, every problem's a bit different. There's not steps to solve them. So you got to be able to read the question carefully. You have to understand the information the question is giving you. And then you have to understand what it's asking you to find. And then develop your own plan of how to find it. So if you didn't do this practice over the next few days, if you just copied somebody else's work, that would do nothing for you. Because the whole point of the next few days is you sort of problem solving and planning, how do I do this one, how do I do this one, how do I do this one? Okay, and we'll do a bunch together, and then there's some practice for you to do on your own. So, and a lot of them involve two different linear relations, which we have talked about a little bit already. Two newspapers offer a classified section to advertise items for sale, the Cambridge Times and the Kitchener Record. Total cost to run an ad in each paper is represented by the graphs below, although the labels are missing. So I think I'll have to fix this. I think this one's supposed to be Kitchener Record. So you add this to yours. Make sure you copy this down, otherwise it doesn't make much sense. And this one is Cambridge Times. That should be on the graph that would be given. Otherwise you don't know which is which. So the part of linear relations that you're good at is figuring out sort of the formula for each. Now in this case, I'm not sure we actually have to do that. But if you did, you could find the initial value of each of them, right? So there's the initial value of one and there's the initial value of the other. And then the rate of each. What's the rate of the Kitchener Record? What's the rate? That's the equation. 40 plus what? Plus nothing. So what part of that is the rate? No. Zero. The rate is zero. There is no rate. What does that mean? It means it's a flat fee. And you've seen things like this in the real world. But now what you want to do is understand that a horizontal line, a flat line on a graph, what does that mean? That means some kind of cost system that's a flat fee, right? You just pay, like, here's a good example. Canada's Wonderland. Anybody been to Canada's Wonderland? Canada's Wonderland, you pay a lot of money, like $60. You don't pay per ride. But sometimes at like festivals or that sort of thing, you pay per ride. You pay an entry fee and a per ride fee, or there's no entry fee, you just pay per ride or whatever. Okay, good. So this one's just a flat fee of $40. Doesn't matter how many times the ad runs. Kitchener Times, we don't have to work out the rate, but you could, because it would be easy, because that's for one. How much does it cost for one, right? But it starts at 10 and goes up from there. So let's read the answers here. And this is where just test-taking skills could be helpful. So understanding how to answer a multiple choice test. I've seen lots of you, we've done a little bit of multiple choice in this course, and I've seen lots of you get stuck on them. But then when I encourage you, well, which ones is it not? Like, which ones can you cross out? That makes the question a lot easier. Cambridge Times is always cheaper. Can anybody tell me if they think that's true or why they think it's not true? Caleb? And you could do that. You could extend the line like that on your own. And if it passes the Kitchener Record, it's more expensive. So it's not that one. Very good. B, the Kitchener Record is always more expensive. It starts more expensive. Is it always more expensive? Julian, you say no, why? Right, good. Tariq, what do you want to say? Yeah, that's true. So is the Kitchener Record always more expensive? That depends on how many times the ad runs, right? But that's not what it means. It means per ad. So this is actually the same thing. If Cambridge Times is always cheaper, Kitchener Record would always be more expensive. That's actually saying the same thing. So for the same reason, that one's not true. When it crosses over here, Kitchener Record is less expensive now, right? Okay, Kitchener Record is cheaper if the number of times the ad is run is fewer than 6. Where is fewer than 6? Here's 6. That's where they cross. So over here is fewer than 6 times. Is the Kitchener Record cheaper there or more expensive? So again, this is maybe simple for a lot of you, but how to read information from a graph. What do you think? How do you know? This is a simple question, but like, how do you know that Kitchener Record is more expensive there? At 6, they're the same. Before 6. So for 5 or 4 or 3. Cambridge Times is cheaper, but how do you know? This is maybe a silly, obvious question, but... Good. Basically, what I'm looking for is Cambridge Times is below. The line is below means it's cheaper, right? Doesn't that make sense? Okay, so it's not C, so it has to be D. But let's just make sure that makes sense. We didn't make a mistake. Cambridge Times is more expensive if the number of visits is greater than 6. So here's 6. And after 6, more than 6, Cambridge Times is above, so it's more expensive. So that's it. D. So circle that one. Okay, good. Calvin wants to rent an ice rink for a day and considers 2 arenas. The relationship... where's the other one? Oh, dear. The relationship between total cost of renting from Arena A... Oh, and the number of hours rented is represented by the graph below. Arena B charges... There it is. Arena B charges a flat rate of $200 a day with unlimited hours. How many hours is the total cost the same for both arenas? How am I going to find that? So see how this is a different kind of question? It's maybe not clear. So Haley, we're trying to build like steps here. Do you have an idea of what we could start with? What would you do? Vanja, what do you think?
I would look at the line and then I'll find out where it starts at. And that would be the initial value. And for this one, it's 50.
Good.
The initial fee is $50.
Good.
And it goes up for 2 hours, it's going to be 100. So it goes up like $50
$50
each. 2 hours, 2 hours.
each 2. Good. Which is how much for 1?
1,000.
So there's your rate. Now, whether or not we need to calculate that, that's very good. Vivanjet's calculated the rate. I could go ahead and write the equation for A. It'd be total cost equals $25 per hour plus the starting fee of 50. What else do we want to do here? Cool. What are we going to do with it? You want to draw the line on the graph. So folks, it's not about like that you have to. I think that's a great idea. I think that's probably the best thing that you could do. But if you solve this a different way, I mean, this is supposed to be a multiple choice. Oh, the question, the answers aren't there. If it was multiple choice, you don't have to show work. You might be able to do it without drawing a graph, but I think that's a good idea. So a flat rate of 200, what does that mean? I'm going to do it in red. It means I have a horizontal line like that. This is B. And this is A. And it says, at how many hours is the total cost the same for both arenas? At how many hours? 6. So this is where they're the same. I follow that down. There's 6 hours. And then what is the total cost? It's got to be 200 because that's the only cost that B has, right? So for 6 hours is our answer there. 6 hours is where they cost the same. For more than 6 hours, I would go with B because it's a flat rate. It always costs 200. If you're going to be there all day, go with the one that's a fixed rate. Usually that makes sense, right? In the long run, the fixed rate will cost you less. In the short term, if you're only going for an hour, oh my goodness, you would rent A Because that's going to cost you $50 plus $25 per hour, $75 for 1 hour. Right? So then you get to make a choice. See how every question is a little bit different. This one gave us both and asked a question about it. This one gave us one. We had to draw in the other one. That kind of thing. Okay. Cellphone chargers. Does anybody have a Samsung Galaxy variant of phone? Do you? There's a lot of them, like all different kinds of Galaxies, right? You used to? Okay. And this one's pretty tricky. Samsung Galaxy phone is charging at a constant rate. After 2 minutes, the phone is 30% charged. After 6 minutes, the phone is 50% charged. It's got a fast charger. Yeah, that is really fast. You're right. But does it? Yeah. All right. Right. Okay, folks, you should be looking at this question. It's on the back of your first page. So flip your page over if you haven't already. Show your work. Use the grid if you wish. We'll use the grid and we'll do a few other things. Together. Because I want, you may do it one way, and you can do it your way, but then I want you to also write down what we write down so that you get some other ideas of other strategies that we could use. You might. I'm going to talk about sort of different ways of doing it. Can anybody think of one thing we could do with these two values here? Could. I'm not sure that's going to help. I could find the rate. How would I do that? Say that again. Guys, I can't hear what Julian's saying because you're talking. Sorry, say that again. How much is each minute? Yeah. Ethan, what did you say? Why? How did you figure that out? 30 divided by 2. That only works if it's direct variation, if there's no starting. We don't know if there's a starting. Ethan, what do you think? Divide the differences. What do you mean by that? Ladies? So it went up 20% in 4 minutes. That's how you can find your rate. Here's what I'm going to do, though. I'm going to take that information and I'm going to put it into a table. Okay? So number of minutes. Let's see. Is it N? They're using N, so I'm going to use N. Number of minutes. And then percent charged. I'm going to leave a space for 0 because I know that I'm going to need 0 eventually. So in 2 minutes, it's at 30%. And at 6 minutes, it's at 50%. I could even do this. Actually, come on. I could leave another space here for 4. Oh. Well, okay. Yeah. So see what I mean here? We can do, just like Ethan was saying, this is more familiar, but it's the same thing if you just do it from the word. So this was an increase of 20 in 4 minutes, which means the rate is 20 divided by 4, which is 5. But 5 what? This is important. Percent, that's part of it. Ethan? Percent per minute. Very good. What would go in here? In between 2 and 6. So it would be 4. What would be the percentage? What do you think? Think 40? So it's going 5% each minute. From 2 minutes, it goes up to 35%, and then 1 more minute up to 40%. 10% every 2 minutes, which is 5% per minute. So now I know that if I go back to 0, I want to go back 10% to 20. It's a little bit tricky because this went up 20, but I'm not going down 20. Because this went up 4, and I'm only going down 2. So you really have to be careful. I think a lot of people would mess that up. In fact, on the learning goal, I saw a lot of people forgetting that you got to track back to 0. If it doesn't give you the initial value of 0, you have to find it. And this was a hard one to find that. Okay? This isn't the only way you could do it. I can think of another way that might work. So let's take a look at that. So we haven't even used the grid yet. Find the rate in percentage per minute that the iPhone is charging at. An iPhone charges at 3 times the rate of the Samsung phone. And we found the rate of the Samsung, so we could go ahead and find the rate of the iPhone, right? So the iPhone rate is 3 times, so it's going to be 3 times 5, which is 15% per minute. That is absurd. They do not charge that fast, but it's just a made-up question, right? So someday maybe they will. Yeah, that's not good. Okay, how could I have used a grid for the Samsung phone at 2 minutes? It goes up 30%. It's at 30%, and at 6 minutes, it's at 50%. So I need a ruler here. So there you go. I also see that the initial fee, or the initial percentage is 20. That's the same as what we got here, right? See how it's the same? So you could either use a table or you could use the grid. It's up to you if this was EQAO or a test or something like that. And then I'd still have to find the rate. So I'd still have to find the rate using the grid. And I guess I would probably do that by seeing that this is a change of, these are going up 10, 20. So that's a change of 20. And that's a change of 4 minutes. 2 minutes to 6 minutes is 4 minutes. And do the same thing, 20 over 4 is 5. And then for the iPhone, multiply by 3. Really depends on how you decide to approach that question. Any questions about this? Everybody still with me here? Did you write this down? I think you're on the wrong one there, Caleb. This was on the back of the first page. Okay, well, write down this next one then. Let's do the next one. I'm going to let you try this first one. Try getting it started. See what you come up with, and then we'll continue together. Emma, what did you do for that last question? Because you said you wanted to do it by yourself. What did you end up doing?
I didn't do anything.
No, you didn't. That's fine.
I just followed it.
Good. That's okay. That's okay. Okay. Try to get this one started. Read through it, see if you can come up with the first step. No YouTube? pick a year? Is that what you thought about? Is that why you picked 12? Because this says determine when each company is better. So, right? Like that's kind of what we talked about. So that's kind of what we talked about is that sometimes it's better, sometimes. Okay, so a lot of people have done this, which is great because it really ties into your understanding and your knowledge surrounding linear relations. So you saw that company B starts at 50. So the total cost would be 50 plus, and then you decided to find like a point, and maybe you just use these two, and you have to look at the scale. So it's counting by twos, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. So in 2 months, it goes up $10. So that's $5 times the number of months. So right away, I see that company A is more per month, but the initial fee is 0. Presumably, because it doesn't give us one, right? And company B has an initial fee. So company B is more expensive right off the start because you got to pay $50 just to sign up. And then, but only $5 per month. So in the long run, like I can already tell that in the long run, company B is going to be a better deal. But we're supposed to find out exactly when. So what's going to be the equation for A? It's just going to be $10 times the number of months. But this doesn't actually help me really figure out, like having the equations doesn't actually help. So what are we going to do to figure out when they're the same, Ethan? Graph it. Can anybody think of another thing you could do? You could make a table. And as long as you see where they cross on the graph or on the table, you see where they're the same, you could figure out which is which. And you get to do, usually for these kind of open response questions on EQO, it's up to you. You could do either. If you like a table, you do a table. If you like a graph, you do a graph. So I'm going to do, I'll do maybe a little bit of both. So here's company A. A starts at 0 for 0 months. And it's $10 every month. And some people might try to do this. Why is this wrong? Company A does start at 0. That's not my mistake. What was my mistake? I went up by tens. Cool? It's every 2 months. So if it's $10 for 1 month, how much would it be for 2 months? 20. So I got to make sure I'm going up by 20s. 20, 40, 60, 80, 100. There's where they meet. And then 120. Okay, and I'm going to connect these with a nice line because why not? Oh, I see why that's not working. There we go. So that's company A. So they meet at, follow that down, at 10 months. So company A starts cheaper, but after 10 months is more expensive. Who would sign up for a music streaming service only for like 5 months? Like usually if you're doing that, you're doing it kind of like forever, I think. Like you wouldn't change after a while, right? You think so? I mean, unless they change the service or something, you change your mind, you bought a new phone and worked better with a different one, or I don't know. But usually you're in it for the long haul. I think you'd probably want the one that's cheaper in the long run, but that's up to you. So if I was doing a table for A, okay, I'd have number of months 0. A would be 0. For 1 month, A would be 10. For 2 months, A would be 20. For 3 months, A would be 30. And I'd have to continue that until apparently I got to 10. And for B, I would get 50. And then it's going up by 5. So 55, 60, 65, and so on. And I'd notice after 10 months, they'd be the same. And then I'd have to figure that out. So let's write a final statement. Therefore, does somebody want to try answering this question? When is each company the better deal? Like what sentence would you write? Julian, go for it.
A is the better deal up until 10 months.
A is, and by the better deal, you mean cheaper, right? Yeah. If you say it either way, I think that's fine. I'm going to say A is cheaper up to 10 months. And then EQAO doesn't usually ask questions that you have to write in a statement. It's usually more like a fill in the blank. Sometimes you have to justify. But so this might be a little bit even harder than EQAO. But I would say both. So then what happens after 10 months? Up to 10 months, A is cheaper. After 10 months? Yeah. After 10 months, B is cheaper. All right, one more. Everybody okay? We got one more to do, then you get some to do on your own. Do you have a question? No? This question, is that what you're thinking? Okay, so let's read the question and try to figure this out. Adil took the measurements seen in the table below. You know what a slingshot is? Right? So it's got like an elastic on it. And so you can imagine the further you pull back the elastic, the further the projectile is going to go. So it's your rocks or marbles or something. So the measurements compare how far he pulled back the slingshot and how far the projectile went. So when he pulled the slingshot back just 5 centimeters, not very far, it went 800 centimeters. That's about 8 meters. That's like maybe the distance of this classroom. Not very far, right? But he didn't pull it back very far. He pulled it back 10 centimeters, it went further. He pulled it back 10 or 5 more centimeters than that, it went even further. He's wondering if he can hit a pond that's 30 meters away. Guys, come on. Let's focus. We're almost done here. You don't think so? Okay, let's calculate it though, because you don't want to go, if this was a question, you wouldn't just go with your gut. You'd have to show your work. Good. Oh, you've already calculated? What is 30 meters in centimeters? That would be 3 meters. So 3,000. So let's just do it in 3,000 centimeters, and let's just work in centimeters, because that's what our table's in. Okay? So let's go ahead and calculate this. What's the change here? And is this 500 again? And what's this? 5. And what's this? 5. So if I'm going to go back 5, I'm going to go back 500, and this is 300. This is what some people forgot to do on the learning goal, and I know you know how to do this, but you got to remember to do it. If you're not given 0 as the first row of your table, you got to calculate it. Okay? So now I can write my equation. So the distance traveled is, oh, wait, we haven't found the rate. Sorry, what's the rate? 500 divided by 5, which is, Damien, you with us here? 100 centimeters per centimeter, I guess, is what that is. It's a little confusing, but it's okay for now. Okay, so let's calculate this. Distance equals 100 times the number of centimeters you pull back plus 300. We good? Tariq, come on. He thinks he can pull the sling back about 30 centimeters. So if I find how much for 30, I can decide if that's far enough to hit the pond, right? Do you think so? That's as far as he can go. If he can get 30 meters with that, then he's good. So let's figure that out. There's a lot of 30s in this question. Okay, so D equals 100 times 30, because that's how far he can pull back, plus 300. So what does that work out to? What? 100 times 30 is
3,000.
3,000 plus 300.
76. Gotta carry the two.
It's okay. Can he hit the pond?
Yeah, if you carry the two, then the 76 get more.
Therefore, he can hit the pond. He can go past the pond. So if he's calculating it, how far exactly would he have to pull back to hit the pond?
7.5.
This is a trickier question. So let's think about it. How do I figure this out?
Okay, so you minus 30 minus 3, because that would be minus,
Yes, I understand what you're saying. Yep. And then what would you do?
you would minus 300 from 33, minus 300,
Yeah.
3,300, then you minus 3 from 300.
Okay, good.
Wait, bro, because like it's to halfway.
Nope. The pond is 30 meters away. He can go this is the tricky part. Folks, don't tune out right now. This is really important. What is it asking for here? What is it telling us? So see how we have an equation? I subbed in for the number of centimeters to pull back. But now it's asking us to sub in for the other one, the other value. It's giving us that distance. See what I mean? It's giving us the total distance. So here's what I want to think about. Hold on, Emma, I know I see your hand. The total distance, I'm going to write this down. Total distance, or D, is 3,000 meters, because that's the distance of the pond. So when I think about this in terms of my equation, how do I find N?
Okay, well, you minus 3 centimeters. You minus 300 from the distance traveled, and then that is 300 is equal to.
Okay, so hold on. Yep. So if I do 3,000 minus 300, what does that give me?
Wait, no. 33,000.
Guys,
is
33,000 is the furthest, 3,300 is the furthest that I can shoot it.
Yeah.
But that doesn't have anything to do with the pond.
Yeah, but it's 30, and then you can go only 3,000, so you minus 300 from that.
Right. 300 minus 3,000 minus 300, which is what? 2,700, yep. And what do I do with the 2,700, Ethan? So now I take that 2,700 and divide it by 100, which gives me what? 27. Therefore, he should pull the slingshot back 27 centimeters. I'm just going to talk about this again. Almost always in this class, you've been given that value and you just put it into the equation to solve. When you're given this value, we've done it a couple of times, but when you're given that value, it's a little bit harder. So what do I do first? The first thing is I want to take that out. I want to get rid of it, because then I can divide by 100 and see how many fit into that. See what I mean? But I have to take out the initial part first. Then I can divide. So we did 3,000, which is the distance of the pond in centimeters. minus 300, and then 2,700 divided by 100 is what we did there. Does that make sense?
So, yeah, I need
Use a GPS, is that what you said? I don't think a GPS will help you with a slingshot, but anyway, yeah. It does help with some things.